Alright, this is what happens when I show up for the show. Watch and learn, Notre Dame. Watch and learn. Well, how are things, my southern compadres? So we're here in the new year in 2013, the SEC is still boss, Nick Saban's hoisting a crystal trophy, and I'm still staring at you through my webcam. Why do I feel like we haven't progressed in the last year? There's someone else who might feel like I do. Brian Kelly. Or maybe just Notre Dame as a whole. Coming out of 2011, the Irish were a mediocre team, and the only thing we knew for sure was they weren't ready for the big time. Not a whole lot's changed. Notre Dame was handed the worst title game beat down in the BCS era and the 7th overall win for the SEC, who looked as dominant as ever. That number also matched the tally of teams from the conference in the final poll. The beating was so bad it dropped the Irish down to number 4 in that same poll. Can you imagine what they'll have to do to convince voters in the future? Notre Dame was perfect before the game started, but found themselves down 35-0 before it was over. And that only tells this guy one thing about Notre Dame. You can't hang, boy! 35-0? Football games are kind of like a class with only 2 students. And you only have to show up for one class. They took attendance in Miami, and you could not be found. This is unacceptable! On the other hand, Alabama's complete control of both sides of the ball only took a couple breaks in the game to let the scrubs in. So, did Notre Dame lose it, or did Alabama just dominate? The stats suggest the latter, actually. Notre Dame only turned it over once. That doesn't excuse their run game. An undefeated team rushing for less than 50 yards in a game is unthinkable, and that vaunted defense looked like a cheese grater. You get it? Because it has... It's fitting that the last 2 big bowls showed us exactly why we'll have the playoffs 2 years from now. But can't we just get that on rush order for next year? As it turns out, both of the NFL's southern teams drew a Sunday matchup to decide their playoff fates. But only one team might survive that divisional round, and the team that I believe can do that has Sunday's first game. The Atlanta Falcons took the top seed in the NFC, and they welcomed the Seattle Seahawks to the Georgia Dome on Sunday, where they are 7-1. Seattle has as much momentum as any team, but they're a much different team on the road. The mind-boggling 3-5 record speaks for itself, but they're scoring almost 10 points fewer on the road. Not the thing to do if you plan on winning your own division. The Falcons' defense has shown steady improvement towards the end of the season. Aside from the meaningless Week 17 loss to the Bucs, Atlanta hasn't given up more than 20 points at home at all past Week 4. Given another year in another location, I might have picked Seattle, but the Falcons have the experience and the best advantages to advance to the conference finals. The Texans travel to New England next, and while I used to have more faith in Houston than Atlanta, I can't pick them to advance over the Patriots. There's the elephant in the room with the Texans' big loss up north a month ago. But like I said before, that wasn't the first time they had gotten whipped, or the last. To return to the scene of the crime and doing so after having built very little momentum is a tough order. No one's expecting much out of Houston, and maybe that'll work to their advantage, but this is business as usual for the Patriots. If anyone's going to save the Texans, it'll have to be Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson, who can expose New England's past defense that's almost dead last in the league. For the record, I also think Baltimore and Green Bay will advance Saturday, but we'll wait till next week to see about the Final Four. That's the show, but I'll be back on Mondays for Week 20, and until then, stay logged on to RandallSportsReport.com for all your Southern sports needs. That's my time, and that's your wrap-up for Week 19. We'll see you later.